In London, technology is the Silicon Roundabout. Introducing a new talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. Silicon Real. Okay, thanks so much for coming today to the Eventbrite space. My name is Brian Rose. I host London Real, where our mission is putting the BBC out of business. Every week we introduce kind of extraordinary people and we introduce you to them online. We've had guests like celebrity astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, who tried to wrestle me to the ground. We had Tim Ferriss doing the 4-hour everything, and we've also had the marijuana smuggler, Howard Marks. So that's what I do. There you go, you know him. And so I do that in my spare time. I also shoot a show called Silicon Real, which is the weekly talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene, and it's right around the corner. I was actually lucky enough, we had Mr. Mike Butcher from TechCrunch on last week. We just had someone from Index Partners on, and we've got Uber on tomorrow. We're streaming live. Sorry, there's no tickets. Sorry, Eventbrite. It's free, but you can watch that, and we're going to be grilling them about all the fun things that they do. So I was lucky enough to have the CEO of Eventbrite, Kevin Hart, on my show about 3 months ago. He's a really fascinating guy, really introspective guy. And when I asked him the question I'm going to ask Laurent at the end of this, the advice he would give to his 20-year-old self, he said, take some risks, make an impact on the world, and do something really incredible. And then he went on to say that he thought he was a late bloomer and he was getting really frustrated with himself. And he said, I didn't start my first company until I was 25. And he was like, I didn't pull a Zuckerberg. So I thought that was really funny. And yeah, it was great having him on. So thanks to Eventbrite and the space, you're making Old Street a little more beautiful. I don't know if you're familiar with this area or if you are, but about a year ago, this would not have happened here. So it's kind of making this whole space, the whole space great. So let me introduce you to my guest. This is Laurent Sellier, who is the recently appointed VP of Products at Eventbrite, which is the world's leading self-service ticketing platform. Last year, Eventbrite processed over $1 billion in gross ticket sales, over 1 million events. You're experiencing double-digit growth, and you've raised over $200 million in VC. Laurent was the director at Twitter in product management for 2 years, and before that he was at Amazon working on the Kindle product for 7 years. So fresh from Silicon Valley, Laurent, welcome to Silicon Real at Eventbrite.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being here. I always wonder when people come to London, especially in tech, when you're on the plane and you're like, I'm about to fly to London, what are you thinking? What are you thinking about this city, about the people, about the UK?
I mean, England, in particular London, is a unique place in my heart because when I moved to the US 15 years ago, I actually had to wait for my visa, and I waited in London for about 6 months. So I did get to work here and work in the tech community. I mean, we're really proud at Eventbrite to be part of this community here, and I think it's a thriving area, a thriving space for technology in general. So. And London is just a wonderful city. It's a city with a lot of energy, and I love the English sense of humor as well. So it's just exciting to be here. Yeah.
And when you mention the words London and tech, when you're in Silicon Valley, what do people say to you? What do people say?
I think it's a place that I think aspire to become another area of thriving, startups. A thriving ecosystem. I think you guys are gonna get there. I think there's all the ingredients to be doing things like what we do in the Silicon Valley. I think it's just a happening place in technology. We have a great office here. All the jobs that I've had in the past, we've had really great engineers and designers and talents in London. So. London to me is just an extension of the Silicon Valley in many ways.
And how does it feel? Does it feel, say, like the Silicon Valley did 10 years ago, or if you ever went to New York like 5 years ago? Does it? Because I feel this real kind of sense of something really building. I mean, even the roundabout and all the tech places here. I mean, does it have a certain kind of a buzz or feel to it? It's different than when you were getting your visa.
Oh,
when you were
completely.
here.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it's technology is a key ingredient in the city at this point. Beyond finance and all the traditional industries, I think tech is happening here. It's exciting to see.
So why make the move from Twitter to Eventbrite? And what are your plans, for the future on this product?
I think we have an incredible opportunity to build something that nobody else has done, which is this marketplace for live experiences. And that was a challenge that I was very excited about when I heard about it when I was being interviewed. And what drives me in my career at this point is the ability to innovate in a space that, like ours, where I think innovation is going to happen. It's going to happen around how you find and discover events. It's going to happen around when you're at the event itself, the type of experience that technology allows. I think it's just a space where innovation is going to be skyrocketing over the next few years, and I wanted to be part of that. The team that I talked to when I was interviewing was of really high caliber, so all the ingredients were there for me to be excited to join the company.
And mobile is going to be a big piece going forward. I mean, when people say that, it always seems obvious, but I guess it's not obvious to some companies.
I mean, mobile is a big part of our business today, and it's the fastest growing part of our business. I think we have this incredible device in our pocket these days, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device, that knows about where you are, that knows about who your friends are, and that knows about your tastes. And carrying that device around is very powerful. And for us to be able to leverage that platform to tell you about cool things to do over the weekend, cool things to do when you're traveling, the sky is the limit in terms of what we can do.
And your new product that's coming out, the idea is that you can kind of empower the people running the event and the consumers in order to use that.
Yeah,
we just run the event, right?
We just launched Neon, so it's our new app.
Is that why we have the neon signs here?
Exactly.
I got it.
So it's all organized.
Figured it out.
It's all figured out. So Neon is our app for event organizers. It's focused on enabling organizers to check in people at the door when they come to an event, to sell them tickets, but also to track their sales. So it's actually a very addictive product for all the customers that use it. I mean, we got a lot of feedback since we launched it a few weeks ago. People use it every day before the event starts because they can see how they're doing in their sales, and they might do a little bit more marketing to get more people to attend. And then at the door they can have multiple doors staffed with the Neon product. So it's usually working on an iPhone or an iPad, and you can see your sales evolving or the check-ins evolving over time. It's just a really cool new way to do basically things that a venue organizer would be wanting to do. It used to be kind of stuck in the old world. Now we've brought it to the mobile world, and it's exciting for the customers using it.
Okay. Talk about the UK. I mean, my show's called London Real. We're in London, but I think 71% of your sales are in the greater UK. So it's not really about the urban centers all the time, is it?
That is, today we are definitely. London's a big business for us. I mean, it's actually our third largest city in terms of places where we sell tickets. But you're right, most of the tickets in the UK are outside of London. We think there's unique opportunities outside of London. There's a lot of relevant and big cities, but London is a fast-growing market for us as well.
You're a product guy, a guy that really specializes in the product experience. And we had a guest on, his name is Debu Prakastawa. I don't think I'm killing his name there. And he worked for Google for 6 years in new business and corporate development. He's now the entrepreneur in residence at Octopus. And he said that in San Francisco, they have very specialized product guys like this one that probably spent 10 years working on developing products. And here, we don't have that depth of experience. And I was wondering if you could tell us what makes a product person or experience as opposed to what I might just think of as a tech person or a programmer. What makes someone who can actually specialize in a product?
That's actually a good question, because at Eventbrite we have a lot of people joining the company every week, and every month I actually present to the company around what is product management to the new hires. Because most people don't actually really understand what the concept of product management is. Arguably, it's a foreign concept to a lot of people, but and it started in the Silicon Valley, and that's probably why it's very prevalent in that region. But the concept is it's a person in the organization or a group of people that are going to be in charge of representing the voice of the customer. So for us, it's going to be organizers or attendees, but when we're going to be working closely with engineering, with design, with all the different functions in the organization to make sure we build the right product for the right audience. Often you have to make some trade-offs between going down a path that might be easier to do from a technical standpoint, but that's not going to lead to the same great customer experience. Or you might take more time, and it's going to be a better customer experience, but it's going to take more time. So we help kind of find the right trade-off in the organization. You asked me what type of people make good product managers. In general, it's people that are curious, that never stop to learn, that are technical in the way they can actually discuss with an engineer or designer, be part of a technical conversation and understand what's happening. It's going to be somebody who is going to learn a lot about the world, the technology world that surrounds them, so that they can actually bring new trends into the conversation and say, hey, have we seen this technology? Should we embrace it and go after it? And it's somebody that's analytical. You cannot do that job if you don't know how to manage a lot of data and make decisions based on data.
Do you have to be obsessed with the customer experience and customer feedback?
I don't know if you need to be obsessed. I think you need to, it's another, so creating a great customer experience is it's a lengthy process and it's a work of art, but it's, you have to balance, different things. You have to balance schedule and quality of the product and technical feasibility. And so, yeah, it's being able to find the right trade-off and to build the right experience, but not spend 5 years on something you could have done 95% as well in 6 months. That's usually the complexity of the exercise.
So the iPhone 6 just came out, and I'm still waiting for mine. I won't mention the carrier, but Apple has a very distinct way that they develop products, and say Google has a very, maybe not opposite way, but a very different way. And I was wondering if you could tell me about those states. I mean, Jobs famously said, I don't ask the customer what they want, I tell them what they want. Is that the way you think as well?
So it's actually interesting you ask. I actually teach a class at USF. It's a school in San Francisco, okay. It's a university, around building products. And I've actually been lucky enough in my career to be exposed to kind of the two ways you just described. There's kind of the Apple way. Apple started with this concept of building products by thinking long term. Like, if you build an iPhone, you kind of need to think about it almost 2 years before. Like, what will a customer want 2 years from now? And at Amazon, we embraced a lot of that approach as well, which was kind of the working backwards process. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the idea is when you start working on a product, you write the press release first. So you actually think about what customers are going to be exposed to 2 years from now, and then you try to work to that vision. You often I think you can get to 95% of it if you do your homework well at the beginning. So that's kind of what I would describe as the Apple way of doing things. Then Google and places like Twitter, where I was exposed to that, and Facebook, and a lot of what we do at Eventbrite is about quick iteration on improving the product. So you're going to say, I want to make the sign-up process easier for customers to be able to sign up faster. So you're going to try different approaches. You're going to A/B test those approaches. You're going to measure which ones work better. You usually measure on a percentage of your users. You don't do that on all of the users. So you have some control and some tests. And then at the end, you see what approach works better. And then you ship it to everybody. And those can be done in a very quick 2-week, 3-week type of sprints. And you can get to iterate really fast on your product. So that's more of the Google approach. Like your search page on Google, they do that every day. They run dozens of experiments on that page. They move things around. They add some specific features for you to see if you're interested in them, and then they'll ship the ones that work well. Yeah, so these are two very, very different approaches that arguably require two different types of brains to work on that.
Which one are you?
I've learned to be proficient in both. So I mean, it's been something that Yeah, I've learned how to do both, and I think for our business at Eventbrite, we need both actually, because there are areas where we have an established business. So the organizer side is, has been very successful. Last year we ticketed $1 billion, of tickets. Organizers have very positive feedback on what we do, and I think we can do better. So we're going to continue iterating in a quick way to see what works better for our audience. And then there's areas where we have to be breaking new grounds. I think on the mobile side, the app you have in your pocket, I think we have opportunities to do things that are very disruptive, and those we're going to launch them and dream new experiences and launch them and see how they do. But I don't think we're going to be A/B test our way into it.
Talking about social, I read that someone was 3 times as likely to buy a ticket if they saw their friend buying the ticket. And how do you incorporate that into the Eventbrite platform?
So on Eventbrite, you can sign up to Facebook. So you can actually, at that point when you've done that, I mean, it's a one-click action. You can see what your friends are going to be attending. So it's a very powerful feature that you're in the homepage. You just you just clicked on Eventbrite, and you can see what events your friends are going to go to. You can also do that when you run a search query. You can see that on your mobile app. It's just been extremely successful for us, and you're right, because events at the end of the day are a social experience. You probably will have more fun going to a concert with a friend than if you go alone. It's been incredibly successful for us.
It's strange, I was talking with your CEO, Kevin, and in this world where we're all connected online, we still all want to get together, which is what Eventbrite's all about, right? People still want to touch each other and see each other and shared experiences, right?
We have this belief that, and I think a lot of data these days proves that people need human interactions. Just being in front of your computer or your phone all day long is not fulfilling as a human being, and being able to go to concerts or cooking classes or an event like this with all the great people attending today just prove that you need those type of human interactions, and that's part of our DNA.
Your audience is really big in the US right now. How is it different when you try to roll out in Europe and roll out in different languages and in different countries and then go even further into Asia? Is that something that's very complicated or very important for Eventbrite?
So the US is about 80% of our business today. England is actually a big part of our business as well. And we, especially given from where I come from, I have a specific, unique sensitivity to making sure we build products that work for a global audience. We generally ship features that are international by nature. They're localized in, I think, 17 different languages. They work for a large part of the world. I think we've sold tickets in 187 countries so far. We're actually pretty hot in Southeast Asia. I was there earlier this year, and Eventbrite was actually pretty popular, in particular in the tech community. A lot of people were using that to organize events like this. We try to roll out internationally as quickly as possible, hopefully on the day anything launches. Otherwise, it just comes a few weeks after. But for example, we just launched Neon in the US 3 weeks ago, I believe. And we're launching it in the UK any day now. It's in the matter of, it depends on Apple pushing the right buttons to authorize the app at this point.
Right. If anyone here is listening and they want to develop a product, which is pretty much everyone these days, and maybe you cover this at your class in San Francisco, but is there a few tips of advice that you can give people, even 3 things to think about how they design their product, and if they didn't do that, then they might design something that's completely useless? Are there some basics?
I think the first thing I would do is, mobile is so prevalent these days that I would build a product to be mobile first. So it doesn't mean that a website is not important. For example, for our business, the web is actually critical to our success. But you need to make sure that the features you conceive work well on mobile. And then you bring them to the web. In the past, you used to do the other way around. You used to build for the web and then try to squeeze it to make it fit on the mobile screen. I think you need to do the other way around these days. But that's more a tactical detail. In terms of building a product that can succeed, I think you want to think of ideas, think of problems people have in their lives. That's usually the way I start thinking about products is analyze the market, understand what are the pain points people have in that market. I mean, you mentioned Uber a few minutes ago. They did a good job at identifying it's really hard to get a cab in Paris. I think the idea actually started there, like what can we do? And identify those pain points and build a product around that. Build a very simple user experience. I do think that if it takes people 5 clicks to do something, they usually don't go that far. So a really simple experience, mobile first, solving very clear problems for mankind. That's the way I would start.
Are there companies that impress you? Is Facebook kind of a gold standard in the Valley, or anyone else as far as that kind of iterative user experience of designing better products?
I mean, the funny thing about the approach of iterating quickly is that for a lot of people, it's actually transparent. Unless you're working there, you don't necessarily know that those iterations are happening. I think there's quite a few companies that do a good job at that. One of them that I think has been very good at it is Instagram. I think they do a good job at being true to a very simple and powerful product, yet they do iterate in the background on making the product a little bit more easier to use or with new capabilities. That's one thing that I think they've done well. I think we're doing really well as well. As a company, we have a really strong engineering team that builds really great features, and we try to roll them out fast and in an iterative fashion, as I mentioned to you, and also sometimes we launch them when we think they are the right thing to do.
I have to ask the question everyone wants to know. What's a Frenchman doing in San Francisco? How did you get there?
How did I get there? That is a good question. So I'm from France, you said that.
Whereabouts?
Paris. I was born and raised in Paris, lived there for 25 years, something like that, 23. And then, I'm an engineer by training, and I went to business school as well. And as part of my engineering training, I was able to live in Los Angeles for 1 year. I had a 1-year exchange program with UCLA.
Okay.
So I discovered the web during that time. It was 95. I remember it really well. I was living with a roommate at that point, and I walked into his room one day. He had just installed this brand new computer. I mean, 95 computers were gigantic, if you remember that.
Yeah. And no flat screens.
No flat screens. And he's like, hey, look at this. This is pretty cool. And he showed me, that was the first time I saw the web. 95, It was the beginning of it. Actually, I think Netscape celebrated the 20th anniversary of the browser 2 days ago. So,
right, okay. That's about right. So it would have been a Netscape browser you were on.
It was a Netscape browser. And he showed me this page from the Disney website, and it was actually playing little videos. And I just thought it was the most interesting thing I had ever seen. And I thought there was something very powerful with it. And I think that day I just thought there could be something to do career-wise in that space. Moved back to France after spending a year there, a year in LA. Got an internship when I was in business school with an internet service provider. And then I got hired for a French company that shipped me back to Menlo Park. I kind of wanted to go back to California. I enjoyed the weather and just the energy. And also, I mean, in technology, I just thought California was probably a good place for that. And so, I moved there 16 years ago, and I've lived in San Francisco the whole time.
You ever tempted to go back to Paris?
I go back for family reasons. I'm actually going back this weekend. My grandfather's turning 100, so we're having a little party for that. I usually go back a couple times a year. And when the kids are going to get older, we'll go more often. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so it's a big production to go anywhere. And
that must have been a complete mind frame change going from Paris to San Francisco, especially in the tech industry at that time. I mean, did it just feel like people were thinking differently, or was it just kind of an exciting time when things were changing?
Well, there's a lot of San Francisco is probably one of the most European cities in the States. It's not very big. It's actually very approachable. It's not like Los Angeles where you have to drive everywhere. You can actually walk places. It's on a hill, but other than that, it's pretty walkable. Steep hills, multiple hills. I just like the open-mindedness of Americans. Like you can come and within an hour or within 2 minutes, you feel at home. Like you don't, there's no barrier. It's people are very friendly, very open-minded. I think the willingness to try new things and willingness to accept change is also something that's very unique to California. I mean, it's such a fresh and new place that I think that goes with the territory. But that's probably one of the reasons the technology industry has been so successful there, is that you got to be willing to break things and try new things, and people are just okay with that in that part of the world.
Let's talk about the future of Eventbrite. Competition, Ticketmaster, big organizations like that have been around for a long time that don't necessarily have the tech plays that you have. When you think about products, and I guess it does come down to you because you're thinking about for 5 years out, what do you think about when it comes to competing kind of like these big established ticket companies?
I mean, on our side, we have really 3 priorities. Our first priority is to build that live event marketplace that nobody arguably has built so far, where you can, on your phone or your desktop, find compelling things to do in your real life. I think we're really well positioned to be the leader in that space, and we're moving in that direction. Our second priority is to make sure that we continue serving our existing customers. So we have tens of thousands of organizers that use our platform, and we want to continue serving their needs and innovate for them. The third priority is very dear to my heart. We want to use our mobile apps, so that we have 2. We have the Eventbrite app and Neon, but on the consumer side, the Eventbrite, our app is we want to use that as our showcase of innovation. We have, I think, on mobile platforms, unique opportunities to build things that you could not do on the desktop. I mean, your phone knows about your location, it knows about your address book, it knows about your tastes, and we want to leverage that to be creating disruptive experiences. So these are our 3 priorities. To be honest with you, I don't wake up every morning thinking about the competition. I actually think about what can we do for our users, what can we do for the organizers. We listen to them very carefully. We actually have a very simple process internally where every 8 weeks we have different teams in the organization share their findings with the different people they talk to. So our customer support team will come back to us saying, hey, these are the top issues we've heard about over the last 8 weeks. The sales team will do the same, the marketing team, and we gather all that input and form basically a roadmap of what we want to build. But competition is not something we focus on too much.
So there's a class at Stanford right now that they're broadcasting on podcast form. It's called How to Start a Startup. I don't know if you heard about this. And Peter Thiel, who created PayPal and now runs Palantir, he has a class he calls Competition is for Losers. And he's reminded me of what Laurent was saying. And he says that you should be going for a monopoly when you're designing a product, and you should go to just completely own the space. And if you're competing with someone else, then you're changing all your priorities. And I was wondering if you agree with Peter in those statements.
No, I mean, maybe I wouldn't be as bold as he is statement-wise, but I do agree. You want to focus on serving the customer needs and not on being distracted by what other competitors are doing. I think it's already a full-time job to be, your eyes on the ball, building great things, and yeah, competition is not our top priority.
What was it like at Amazon for 7 years? I'm always curious. I was reading 2 books right now. One's called In the Plex about Google, great book, and you kind of figure out how they started. And then one was The Everything Store, and it sounds like a very intense place to work in Amazon. It sounds like you constantly have to prove your worth every month.
To be honest with you, I read those books as well,
okay.
And I did not recognize the company that I worked for in the latter book. Like
okay,
I think he's taken a more dramatic approach to describing the company. I was there. I started in 2000 and when was that? 2005. I was there for 7.5 years. I was actually hired not knowing what I was going to work on. I got hired through a friend of a friend. It's always like that. You find jobs in the Silicon Valley, I find. And he was like, yeah, we're going to build this thing. It's going to be really great, but I can't tell you what it is. And I still took the job. And after day one, they told me that I was going to be working on Kindle, and I was basically employee number 12. Like there were 10 engineers, my boss who ran product, and myself. And I was in charge of thinking about the services side of Kindle. Services meaning like, what can I do when I have a network connection on a little device to buy books? So I was in charge of the store, of the periodicals experience. I spent actually a lot of time in London getting newspaper providers and magazines to be part of the platform when we launched. But so I was, it was a small team. It was a team of 12. We eventually grew to about 100 when we shipped the first device. But it was never a really big team for many years.
Did the iPad exist yet?
The iPad did not exist.
Did not exist.
We were
Wow.
the first device on which you could buy something wirelessly. Like nobody had done that before.
Okay.
It was an incredible place to work. Working with Jeff Bezos is better than business school.
Can you do his laugh?
I can't do his
Is
laugh.
it really like, is it maniacal? Is it
He's a really bright person. I learned a lot from him. I was lucky enough to spend quite a lot of time around him. I mean, he's very passionate about Kindle for good reasons, and we had really good discussions around the product, and he was very instrumental in making it what it is today. So 7 years, 7.5 years spent there.
It's a long time.
I would not give away. I mean, I think they were incredible years, like some of the best times in my life. So I really enjoyed it, and I never saw any of the stuff that was described in the book.
What was your biggest takeaway from working on the Kindle for that amount of time, from a product standpoint? What do you think you learned the most?
That's a good question. I think my biggest learning has been that you have to trust people around you, especially the technical team. If you want to make big bets, if you want to take big steps, as I mentioned earlier, you have to think 2 years in advance often for those products. You have to close your eyes and believe it's going to work out, because often we were building breakthrough technologies, like the Paperwhite technology. I don't know if you have a Kindle Paperwhite, I've seen one, but the one with the light that shines from behind. 2 years before, we dreamed that it was possible. We had engineers work on it, and there's times where we're like, "Oh, we're never going to cross the finish line. It's not going to ship." But good engineers can pull magic, and they did. So yeah, trust your surrounding, trust your team that they can do amazing things, and it's going to be all right.
Do you miss working with hardware? Or are you glad that's over?
We actually do a little bit of hardware at
yeah,
because we have a little dongle you can use to buy things, and we're looking at all the things. But yeah, it's a tiny piece of our business right now. But
and just finishing off with your CV.
And by the way, to answer your question, what I miss about it, it's very different to build software and hardware. Hardware, you actually can dream of something, work with the design team, and within a few days, you can actually hold the product in your hand. It's not a working product, but it's a product that looks like what you're going to be building, that has the same fit and finish. And so it's this really bizarre experience where you can have a conversation on Monday, and on Thursday, hold a prototype of that in your hand. Again, it's not working, but it looks like what it's going to be at the end. Whereas software, you kind of need to discuss, dream it, then you're going to see, a document that describes what you want to do, then it's going to be some mocks, but it's going to take a while for the software to be working. And so it's just a different type of time horizons in terms of when you can interact with the product. Obviously, hardware takes, as I said, between 9 months to 2 years to build. But again, you get to feel it really quickly in the process.
Just finishing your CV out, I have to ask you about Twitter. You were there for 2 years. What kind of did you do there, and what did you learn from that company?
I was hired initially to run the mobile team, mobile product management team. So we were in charge of the iPhone and Android app, and a few other things. And then towards the end, I worked on our emerging market strategy. So how to make Twitter be even more successful in places like Brazil and India and Indonesia and Philippines. I mean,
is that non-smartphone or just low low
A
bandwidth.
lot of those markets now have a pretty high penetration of smartphones. You can actually buy. I was in Jakarta and in Manila in middle of the year this year before I joined Eventbrite, and you can buy a pretty good Android phone for $70. Like it's I mean that's a lot of money for a lot of people, but it's about the same price point as a lot of feature phones. You know, the phones that don't do a lot. So people tend to buy those Android phones instead. So you asked me what I learned at Twitter.
Yeah.
I actually learned a lot about this quick iteration process, how to build features really quickly, you know, test them on a small percentage of your users and look at data and basically ship the variant that you created that works the best. I learned a lot about the social space, obviously. You know, the caliber of people at Twitter, the caliber of employees that work there is just really high, and I learned from all of them every day I was there. It was just a great experience.
So I was looking through his LinkedIn profile, and like most people, they have the jobs, then they have the university, and then at the bottom of Laurent's LinkedIn profile are his 6 patents. So I was like, what the hell? Could you tell us how you have patents and how you have so many patents, and can I get some patents?
Sure. I actually have a funny story around that. So my wife works for the legal department at Adobe. So Adobe, you know, the software company that does Photoshop and so many other things. And I used to work, so we met when the company was called Macromedia. Actually, Macromedia was bought by Adobe. Macromedia used to do Flash and Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
That brings us back really. You were this tall at that point. So the funny story is that there's still patents that I filed when I was at Macromedia that are basically getting granted at this point. Filing patents in the Silicon Valley for any tech company you work at is kind of part of the daily habits. Like you grab coffee in the morning and then you work with your team, and then at some point you're gonna bump
your nose and then you file a patent.
You're gonna have a meeting with a lawyer that's gonna be like, okay, what patents are we gonna file this week?
Okay.
Because it's actually important to build a portfolio to, among other reasons, to be able to protect yourself against other companies that might be suing you for many reasons.
Right, Jeff Bezos patented one-click.
For instance.
For a while.
I have a few patents at Amazon that are pretty good. But yeah, that's part of the cycle. I wouldn't say you do that every day, but you do that on a regular basis. Maybe once a quarter, you sit down with lawyers and look at all the stuff that you're working on and what could be patented out of that. Not all of them, get to be granted, but you can often apply to patents. It's not very expensive, and it's just the right thing to do in a tech company. So I think I have 6. I actually don't really know if I have 6 or 3 or 5, but my wife was adamant about me putting them on the website because she spent a lot of time. She gave me those little plaques, you can put in your office, which I don't have because I find them tacky. But she was very passionate about giving that to me, so I felt like I had to put them, on LinkedIn. That was only fair.
I've interviewed 200 some people and I've never seen that before, so
okay.
It's a first. One question I always ask everyone on Silicon Reel is, I should ask a few questions at the end. I'm going to ask you, if you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Laurent Sellier and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him? Where was he and what would you tell him? So I think there's two things. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so it's not the conversation I have with them yet, but I think I will have it at some point. I think you want to follow your passions. That's a pretty vanilla statement, but I think it's important to work on things that you're passionate about, because you're going to do it every day. You're going to spend 10 to 12 hours every day working on it, and it's so much easier if you work on something you're passionate about. And I was lucky enough, as I mentioned to you, in '95 to discover what the web was, and it's been a passion ever since. Like I wake up every morning, I'm excited about going to work, I'm excited about working with what I'm working on. I think technology is just a wonderful space, and applying what I've learned and building great things at Eventbrite is just fun every day. So work on your, think about what you're passionate about and work in that field. The second one I would say is I actually would learn how to code. Like I know it sounds kind of
difficult for a lot of people to code, but I think it's going to become almost essential for everybody in the future to be able to know how to write code, because our world is so much about technology is so present everywhere. It's in everything we do, and I think it's going to be like writing or math. Like writing code is going to be an essential tool for everybody. So I would encourage any young kid or teenager to learn how to code. I mean, it's so much easier when you're 15 to learn that than when you're old like me right now.
So you wish the 20-year-old would have done both of those things.
I actually
you did one of them.
I did learn how to code. I was not. I was an engineer for a couple of years. I was not. I liked it. I was one of these people that would spend 12 hours straight until they solved the problem. So I could realize it was like 3 a.m. I had not eaten or had any water, and because I was trying to fix my code. So I realized that was maybe not the best job for me, and I moved to do product management. But I didn't know how to do that at some point. I would be hard pressed to use that skill at this point. But yeah, I was reasonably good at that at some point.
Second part of that question is, what's the best advice you've ever received? Could be business or personal over the years.
I think the best advice I've ever received is, I think it's realizing I only have one life. It's a bit philosophical by nature, but it's live your life fully, because you really, you only have one. And once you realize that, and you in your life you have events that remind you of that, whether you've lost somebody that you cared about or you got sick, like remember to live your life fully and to enjoy it, and don't do things you wouldn't want to do. If you're in a career that's not exciting or at a job you don't like, go find something else. Like don't get stranded doing something you don't like. You would regret it when you get a bit older. So remember that you're only here for a short period of time.
Good advice. You gave the advice about coding earlier to someone that's watching us or listening to us around the world that's not in an urban environment, like they can't go to one of these events. What's the best way that they can get involved in technology or get involved, in tech startup?
Well, they can watch you on YouTube, right?
Thank you. Hopefully they are already.
That's
all you have to do.
There's incredible online training these days, most of it being free. You can, that did not exist 5 years ago. You can, Khan Academy comes to mind, but there's so many other places. I have a good friend of mine that works at Google that actually, for 1 year, he takes the bus, the Silicon Valley bus that goes from San Francisco to Mountain View. And he wanted to learn about robotics, I think. It was a very interesting topic that he was interested in learning about. And every day on the bus, going there and coming back, he would take some classes and take some tests. I think all those online trainings have some form of diplomas they can give you at the end. And he learned about robotics basically in his spare time, in times where he could not be doing his normal job. So I think online you have incredible resources, and you get to leverage that. Harvard and so many other schools have classes online as well. The sky is the limit in terms of finding great material these days.
Yeah, they call it meta learning. I think Tim Ferriss calls that. Like anytime I get an email from someone saying like, how do I do that? How do I do that? It's just, you just ask Google and YouTube how you do it, and you will definitely find a way.
That's true. Yeah.
That's it. Thanks so much for being here. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
As we say on Silicon Reel, it's about the people. I wish you all the best on your journey. Thanks to Eventbrite for the space, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for either one of us? We've got a mic coming around, so if you just raise your hand, you can ask us anything about patents.
Yeah.
At least one. All right.
Where you talked about two things. One is integrating mobile into your thinking, and second was integrating social into your thinking. And I was wondering, in terms of, I was looking at starting up an event business, mixing up a range of different platforms. What would be like the first step? Because I was always thinking face-to-face, and I was thinking about the conventional way, like advertising, creating flyers and word of mouth and so on. So I was thinking, like, if I'm thinking social and technology shouldn't I be first thinking about the content and the audience before thinking social and technology? It was more about when should it come into my thinking of product development?
Well, I mean, I think social, it's actually a very powerful platform for us. People find a lot of events they want to go to by looking at their Twitter feed or their Facebook feed. But you need to have compelling stuff for people to do before you present that information. So I would think social is a channel for you, but it shouldn't be the first place you start. It should be a channel like Google Search is a channel, or other types of vehicles. But think about compelling content first.
There's also a great article out there called Do Things That Don't Scale. He was actually one of the lecturers at the Stanford piece. And the whole idea is that as tech startups, you think everything has to scale. So for me, like I could walk out and hand flyers out at Old Street to watch Silicon Reel, or I could try to get it on a scalable platform like Twitter and reach 10,000 people. But I think as a founder, it's important to do things that don't scale, because you're sitting there and you're actually talking with the people and they're like, I don't want anything to do with your flyer, or they'll answer a question, and you'll learn so much about the product and the experience by just targeting a small number of users. So and it's a cop-out sometimes when you don't want to get out there on the streets. So sometimes you need to do things like that, too, before you just go to a scalable platform.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a specialist on India and trade with India. I just wondered how Eventbrite was doing in India, which is a market which has kind of leapfrogged the PC and is right into mobile. And that's a society which is much more stratified and less open. And I just wondered, how you were doing with your, anyone come to an event kind of platform.
So I know we have organizers using our platform in India. You're right that most people don't have a PC, and you're completely correct in the fact that they've gone mobile first. Android is the prevalent platform over there, and so we have an app on Android that actually, as I mentioned earlier, is really important to us to iterate on and improve, because I think for markets like India or the Philippines or a lot of emerging markets, we have to provide a compelling experience on mobile and on mobile first. That would be the way we address that market right now. We don't have a team in India at this point. We have teams in many parts of the world, and emerging markets is something we're going to be looking at some point. Right now we have a product that works well on mobile and works internationally, but the specific Indian needs are not something we're focused on at this point. I think we'll get to it soon, though.
I've got a question. I wonder if I can take a selfie here with all of you in the background. Is that all right?
Is that a question?
Is that kind of like Academy Awards, kind of over?
You want me to take it?
No, it's going to be you and me here. Okay, ready? Hold on. There we go.
You misfired.
Okay, ready? How's that? Okay, smile or something. Okay, how's that? Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you very much. Appreciate it. We'll be around here.
Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Once you're in a buyout industry, the key skill you need to have is being very, very, very good at spreadsheets to analyze the target company in as much detail as possible. Usually when we first invest in a company, you're right, we own 20% and often the founders are left with 80%. Generally, we still want those companies to be run and managed by the founders. The three biggest trends around where most of the value in the tech industry have been created the last 10, 15 years, probably I would say mobile, social, and cloud.